Hello guys. So I have a question that if I want to make my own tab bar application, how I can make that? Or I want an application which has three tabs onto the bottom and which opens up a kind of different class when I click onto the different sections. How can I do that? This video explains the two examples or the two answers to the above questions. Guys, I am Ayush from CodeZoom and this complete video I am going to train you that how you can make a tab bar application. Guys, the very first step is to go on to google.com, just type CodeZoom and under the courses category you can just select the iOS structure and under that you can just select the tab bar complete option so that how you can make your own tab bar application. Once you have done that part, just open your Xcode. It says that create a new project. Just click onto that, click onto the complete iOS part and click onto the single view application. Click on next. Define a class or the complete project name as tab bar codes room. Click on next, click on create. You have your complete project ready with the name of tab bar codes room. Now head over to the main.storyboard. Now select the view controller and from here just drag and drop the navigation controller to the main.storyboard. Now what you have to do next is that when a navigation controller is selected and drag and drop onto the main.storyboard, it pre-selects or it pre-initiates a root view controller with it. Now delete this root view controller and make the root view controller as your view controller which was defined earlier. Now I right clicked onto the navigation controller and just defined the root view controller to my view controller class which was already provided to me. Now what you have to do is just drag and drop this particular arrow to the navigation controller like this. Till now you have your navigation controller, you have your view controller. It's time to just drag and drop the tab bar now you have the tab bar and right now your tab bar is selecting or it's kind of directing the two classes. Right now it will be having the two tabs, but our requirement right now is if we want let's say three tabs or four tabs, then we will drag and drop one more view controller if our requirement is of three tabs at the bottom, and I will right click onto the tab bar controller and I will drag and drop this view controller to my view controller. Now what we have to do next is, do you remember this initializer which we just drag and drop onto the navigation controller? Now we have to put this to the tab bar controller and now we have to create three classes. Now the first class is let's say by the name of view controller. Now my second class will be like second view controller, third and fourth view controller. So it's time to create three new classes. I created the second, third and the fourth classes, and now I'll head over to main.storyboard. What I'll do is I'll just head over to the very first view controller and I'll name it as second view controller and I'll define it the identity storyboard ID as the same as the class name. Now I'll come to the next. I'll define it as third view controller, and now I'll come to the fourth and I'll define it as fourth view controller. Guys, do note that you have to, once you are onto that page, you have to just write one piece of code which I'm going to provide you. And this piece of code says, I'm just commenting this piece of code right here so that I explain you that what this particular code means. So let me make a complete button outlet and then I will explain you that what this particular thing means. So I'm just dragging the complete button onto my view controller. I'm writing the name as click here, making an outlet of it, the touch up inside. Now coming back to the view controller.m file and just copying this particular piece of code and pasting it over the button action. There is one more thing which you have to do is don't worry, I'll explain you that what particular piece of code means what so that you understand that what you are doing right, so that you just have a knowledge that what that particular code means. Now guys, it's time to just look around that I'm navigating it to app.delegate app.delegate.h file. Do you remember that on main.storyboard we created a navigation controller? So what is a navigation controller? Navigation controller, you can understand it as a complete stack which will hold all your classes. All your view controller will be stored in this particular stack. So let's say if you want a kind of, let's say if you have a complete string or if you have a complete label and you want it to be stored somewhere. So what you do is, well, you create an array and you store every particular string in that particular array. So navigation controller is just behaves your array when you are complete storing a label onto that. It just store all your view controllers into that particular part. Right now you can understand it as the navigation controller saves or complete stores the complete view controllers inside it. But later on I'll explain it again or kind of explain it in detail that what all things it can inherit or what all things it can store. So in navigation controller we are creating an outlet of it into app.delegate.h file, app.delegate.h, and we are creating the property of it. Strong, non-atomic. Now we come to app.delegate.h file. Now can you see this particular line? What does this mean? This means that when we were making the complete program, do you remember that we used to just start a program right away because this initializer was dictating that this is the very first controller from where you have to start. But now as I told you before that did finish launching with options is the very first function which is kind of called when your application is launched. So I'm writing it here that hey navigation controller, you have to store all my view controller inside you, and now I'm just defining you that you are into main.storyboard file, and into main.storyboard you will be the kind of the root view controller, and you will be deciding that which view controller will be opened on the very first time. Now let's head over to main.storyboard. As I told you that we defined it with these three lines of code that hey navigation controller, you will be storing all the view controllers inside you, and you will be under the main.storyboard file, and you have to open the view controller which will be by the name, which will be having the identifier as view controller, right? And you will be the root view controller. Then it doesn't even matter then if we have placed this bar onto any other screen, because this three lines of code is indicating that my navigation controller will be deciding that which particular view controller will be my first view controller which will be loaded onto my screen, right? Then do you remember we made it the root view controller as the view controller which we had it earlier? Then right now I'm depicting my navigation controller that you have to open this particular screen when my application launches. So by this particular code, my this screen will launch, and when I head over to viewcontroller.m, let's import view app delegate.h file into this. Now when I'm clicking onto the button click, what does this particular line means? This particular line actually mean that it is defining that when I click onto the button of the view controller, you can just understand it from the view that when I click on this particular button, it is saying that the root view controller will be this particular initializer, right? This particular initializer. And right now this initializer is dictating that it will be having three particular screens inside it, right? Which you can see from this particular line, which is inside this particular name storyboard, which is by the name of main. So let's click onto iPhone 6, click onto the start menu, and just see what it happens. In order to get a clear view that which particular tab is opening my which screen, let's add a label onto it. Right now our application is getting crash, so let's find out what is the reason behind it. It says that my view controller is not having the identifier as view controller, and the reason is that onto the main.storyboard we forgot to place the storyboard ID over here. Now we place the view controller right here and just start the simulator again. Let's place a label onto every screen so that we are clear that which particular screen is opened at what particular moment. Let's define this as second, define it as third, let's define it as fourth. When we start a simulator, we can see that we have the very first screen which says click here. And now when I click here, I have the three tabs in front of me, which is onto the bottom of the screen. When I click onto the item 1, it is loading the second screen, second view controller. When I'm clicking on item 2, it is adding the third. And when I'm clicking on item, the last part, it is opening my fourth class, right? So whatsoever code I do onto second, third and fourth, it will show all the particular part respective to their particular classes and the view controllers. So guys, I hope you understood the complete part which I tried to explain you in my complete video. Don't forget to subscribe our channel and stay tuned, and thanks for watching my video.